Hello, students. How are you all doing? Yes, so I could see many number of students are joining the session. That's fantastic. I hope everybody is having a good day so far. Yes, that's great. A very warm welcome to all of you once again to another exciting class today. This is Pratibha. I'm your senior biology instructor and I'm going to be your teacher for today's discussion. So students, in today's discussion, we shall be understanding about the concept of heredity. Okay, so if you wanted to get to know more about the concept, if you wanted to have any details related to the concepts of biology, you can definitely feel free to get connected with us. You can definitely use the chat box, the comment section for giving out your opinions. And if you wanted to have any discussion about the topics in a more detailed manner, definitely feel free to reach out to us. Okay, so tell me, how is the preparation going on? Is it going good? Yes, everyone? Yeah, so students, I could see some of the students have joined the session. Let's wait for few more seconds for others to join and then we shall start with the discussion of the concept. So I hope the preparation is going on well and your exams are very near. Are you studying all the concepts thoroughly, perfectly? And with respect to biology, you need to also practice the diagrams, right? I hope you are doing that well. So yeah, most of the students have joined. Let's get quickly started with today's discussion. So students, today's discussion will be the concept of heredity and I want every one of you to please place a notebook and pen along by your side so that whenever we are having any important discussion, you can definitely have a note of it, okay? So the concept of heredity, we might have heard this term lot number of times, but we were not aware of what exactly the term represents. So today will be the discussion of the concept of heredity and we shall be understanding about various concepts pertaining to this chapter. The concepts including variation and inheritance. We shall have a quick brief introduction about the variation and inheritance followed by accumulation of variation during the reproduction like in sexual reproduction, asexual reproduction, how the phenomena will be there and we shall be understanding about the heredity and we shall be understanding regarding the rules for inheritance of traits and we have the father of genetics over here who is Gregor Mendel. So we shall be understanding about the Mendel's contributions and his work on the pea plants and we shall be having a glance at the cross between the tall and the short plants, which is also a Mendel's experiment. Thereby, we shall be understanding regarding the monohybrid cross and later on we shall be understanding the inheritance of two traits together. If one, it is monohybrid. If it is two traits, we are going to describe it under the dihybrid cross and followed by how the traits are getting expressed and yes, we shall finally conclude with the sex determination. So this is going to be the topic of discussion, the agenda of today's discussion. So let's start with variation and inheritance. So what do you think about the term variation? Something is being different. So what does the term include? There is something that is being different. So what is different? Now, we could see the reproduction process in the previous sessions. Do you remember? We have understood regarding types of reproduction, the sexual reproduction and the asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is involving single parent and sexual reproduction involves two parents, the male and female gametes fused together. Fertilization happens. So, the reproduction process is meant for the production of new individuals and that too the individuals are very similar to that of the parents. Okay, for suppose cats produce the cats, dogs produce the dogs, animals produce the animals, right? So nowhere human being is going to give a birth to the animal, right? No, that does not happen. So what we can say, the species is continuing by the process of the reproduction. there is a continuity of the species from one generation to another generation. In case of asexual reproduction, the offspring produced will be genetically identical to that of the parents, but whereas in case of sexual reproduction, the offspring produced will having a variation. It will not be much genetically identical. Okay, there will be variation, at least some part of variation, not the complete 100% match will be there. Why? Because it is involving two parents. The sexual reproduction is involving two parents, the gametes from male and the female parent. Okay, so what does the reproduction do? It is producing the new individuals that are like their parents. Of course, human beings will be like human beings only, but not the same. Okay, so the children will not be exactly having the same features, the same characteristics as that of a parent, right? There will be a difference. So there are small differences, and these small differences are nothing but the variations. Okay, so if we could see about the variations, how do we definitely give a specific definition of the variation? What we can say, the difference in characteristics or traits among the individuals, particularly the individuals should be of the same species. So the same species individuals are being involved over here, even though the characteristics are or the traits are getting obtained among the individuals. There is a difference even though they are belonging to the same species, belonging to the same parents. For suppose, you know, we have the siblings. Okay, so our siblings don't look exactly as a photocopy of us. There is some differences. So what we can say, there is a difference, and that difference is nothing but the variation. So there can be many differences. There can be differences with respect to height, with respect to the skin color, the eye color, or even the blood group. Okay, mine is A positive, my sibling is O positive, like that. There it might be a difference in the blood group as well between the different individuals. So these variations, the differences are nothing but the variations, where there can be differences with respect to the height, skin color, eye color, even the blood groups among the human beings. Got it, everyone, about the variation? Moving on. Now, it's time for us regarding understanding of variation and inheritance. So, here in this category, we shall be understanding about variation in asexual reproduction and variation in sexual reproduction. Okay, so asexual reproduction, we knew only one single parent is being involved, and the production of newer individuals will be from one single parent only. So one parent is involved. Since there is no male and female gametes over here, since there is no process of fusion, there is a production of offsprings with almost identicalness, identical copies of offsprings are being produced. Okay, even though the identical copying is done, there are sometimes the chances for minor DNA copying errors. So the minor DNA copying errors might be there. For example, in a sugarcane field, there might be chances that a sugarcane have minor DNA error when there is a reproduction. So that minor DNA error might lead to the little variation. Variation will be there, but little variation. Okay, when we are comparing the sexual reproduction, what it is involving? Two parents, two gametes, fusion of male and female gamete, fertilization is happening, and zygote production is happening, right? So there is a mixing and recombination of genes over here, because of which we could see maximum variation among the offspring. Since there is a mixing and recombination of genes, maximum variation will be arising when we are comparing the sexual reproduction and the asexual reproduction. Like sexual reproduction, we can take many examples. Humans, different kinds of animals, they do undergo the sexual reproduction, right? So because of recombination over here, there are chances for higher amount of variations when compared with that of the asexual reproduction. Moving on. Why variations are important? Why do you think, students, why these are necessary? Why? Why? Because the variations, the little differences will be helping the living organisms to get adapted to changing environment so that they enhance the chances of survival of a particular living organism. And not only that, most of the variations are leading to key role in evolution as well. So evolution of various species so that they are getting adapted to varied climatic conditions and they will be able to survive. So we can say variations are the ones which are increasing the chances of survival of a particular species. Now, moving on, now let's try to understand regarding the accumulation of variation during the process of reproduction. We already knew the living organisms, they are reproducing. Okay, the new individuals are getting produced and new individuals are not exactly very much similar to that of the parents. Of course, you know, we can say in this category like a dog gives rise to a puppy. Both of them belong to the same species. Both of them have their physical appearances to be alike, but they are not exactly similar. The new individuals are not resembling as identical copies or the photocopies of the parents. We can conclude variations are occurring within every generation. So, for suppose, let's take in first generation, the variation have appeared because of some things. If it is a sexual reproduction, of course, with the help of sexual reproduction, we can say much recombination of genes will be there and there is a lot of variation. Now, second generation from first generation, second generation have arisen. In second generation also, there are some variations. Now, let's move on. Let's take the third generation. Like that, there are many generations. Over many generations, what happens is the variations are accumulating, and because of the accumulation of the variation, we can say that there is a diversity among the organisms. Now I've got the point how the diversity is arising because the accumulation of variation during reproduction is happening, moving on from one generation to other generation. Overall, many generations, if the variations are persisting, there is an accumulation leading to the diversity among the living organisms. Okay, now the same thing, students, in order to explain, I just have taken a small little example of a cute little rat over here. So original organism, let's take one organism. Of course, it is undergoing sexual reproduction and it is giving rise to two offsprings. Let's imagine because there is a recombination of genes over here, they have arisen some differences or we can say the variations. So of course the variations will be passed, the differences will be passed to the generations. Okay, so they are also giving rise to their own progeny or own offspring. Okay, so if you could take further from the two offsprings, again they will be giving rise to different offsprings, right? We can say the differences are being passed from parents to the offsprings, and in the new offsprings the differences are going to appear. Okay, I'll tell you once again. The original organism, two offsprings are there, very nice, very cute offsprings are there. Now these two offsprings got married to different partners. One offspring is giving rise to again two offspring. Let's say the other offspring, the second one is also giving rise to other two. So the differences are being passed from where? From parents to the new individuals, and the new differences are appearing in these new individuals. Now, each new generation, what it is inheriting, this will be the question for us. Now, the answer for the question will be each new generation is having the basic body structure. Of course, the mouse will be like mouse only, right? From the previous generation, it is having the basic body structure. But along with it, small changes or variations are coming. When the generation is again reproducing further, so what we can say, the next generation, what it is showing variation inherited from the parents. So thereby what we could find? We could find the newly created variations over here. Understood? The newly created variations will be found over here, and this is how the accumulation of variation during the process of reproduction is happening. Okay? Now, the asexual reproduction and the variation. Let's try to understand. With respect to the asexual reproduction, we have only one parent involvement. Let's take one bacteria over here. So the bacteria, it is reproducing, giving rise to two offsprings. Again, the offspring, the doctor bacteria, they again divide, they give rise to the offsprings of their own. So what we can say, from one parent, we could see multiple things are producing. Okay, the ancestor is one, but see, going on, moving on with the generation, many offsprings are getting produced from one generation to another generation. We can find the offsprings produced after many generation is almost identical to that of the parent ancestor. But sometimes what happens, because of small differences, because of DNA copying errors, there might be the chances of occurrence of very small differences, even if it is a asexual reproduction. Okay, got it? Even though it is asexual reproduction, because of DNA copying errors, there are the chances for the occurrence of differences, but very small differences. Now, moving on, asexual reproduction and variation. We have now seen, based on the previous data, variation with respect to asexual reproduction, it is very small, and it is occurring due to what? Due to minor, small, little DNA copying errors. Okay, then what about sexual reproduction and variation? Sexual reproduction or variation is leading to much greater variation in the offspring. Why there is much greater variation? Because this is involving two parents, and from two parents, male and female gametes are getting produced. The combination of male and female gamete, fusion occurs, the fertilization occurs, zygote forms, zygote develops into embryo, embryo grows, gives the individual organism, right? So because of recombination of the genes, there is a much greater variation in case of the sexual reproduction. Understanding, everyone? Is it clear what happens over here? So sexual reproduction and variation is where the variation with respect to the sexual reproduction is having more variation, because there is a recombination of genes which contribute to the greater diversity within a particular species. Of course, all the external bodily features, the basic body features will be same. Okay, two eyes, one nose, one mouth, two ears, two hands, two legs, everything will be same. But what differs? Eye color, skin color, hair, if it is wavy, if it is curly, if it is soft, smooth. So there are many things, right, which will be differing. So what will be the importance of variation? Some variations are very useful. So we can say they will be making the organism to get adapted to different environments for the better chances of survival. Like bacteria. Let's take the good example of bacteria. Bacteria which will be able to survive at higher temperatures will be able to live longer when there is a heat wave. Okay, similarly we can take one more example like the plants. Plants which are having the deeper roots, they will be showing better survival capacities during the conditions of the droughts, right? So we can say the variations are helping the organisms to get adapted to changes within the environment and to create a diversity. So the environment is only selecting the organism with useful variation. Okay, we have seen how the useful variations are getting adapted with respect to the living organisms, and how the living organisms which are showing the best characteristics are moving forward in the evolutionary things. So the natural selection is leading to the evolution over a long period of time. Are you able to understand, everyone? Yes. So now the main result of reproduction. Here we can see the individuals are being produced when there is a fusion of male and female gametes, and that too the basic structure, body structure, will be same to that of the parents. But this similarity is not happening by chance. How it is happening? Certain rules are there which will be guiding this, which are called as the rules of heredity. So now what does this rule do? This rule will be explaining how traits and characteristics are being passed from parents to the children. So how the characteristics and traits are getting passed will be guided by whom? Will be guided by these rules and regulations. Okay, now moving on. What these traits are then? What are the characteristics? We might have a question. We got trait, we got characteristic, but what it is? So trait are the ones which are inherited from parents, like it might be eye color, it might be hair type, the hair color, or even the blood group. Whereas the characteristics, the traits and the environment also will be playing a very important role in describing the characteristic. Okay, it might be height, it might be the weight, it might be the skin color, or it might be a person having sports ability. Anything it might be, the characteristic is also being dependent upon the environment of a particular living organism. So here, one more thing to remember: traits are of two types: inherited traits and acquired traits. Inherited traits are like we owe it from our parents, genetical, but acquired traits, they are the ones which we need to develop. Like some of you might be having ability to swim, some might be learning the skills like dancing, singing, and some are good at sports. All these are the acquired traits. See, remember, if a person is dancer, okay, we cannot expect that dancing thing will be passed to the offspring also, na? Okay, so try to understand what I'm trying to say over here. The acquired trait is the one which is being learned by the person during the lifetime. If a person is dancer, the person is learning the dance during his or her lifetime. Okay, it's not the thing that the dance will be getting passed to the offspring by birth. No, no, no. If the offspring also wanted to learn dance, definitely they need to get skilled with learning dance. Okay, it's not like from birth only it is being present. No, that trait cannot be given, that trait cannot be passed. So inherited traits are the one that are being passed from one generation to another generation. Acquired traits are the one that are being acquired by a person during the lifetime. So now, inherited traits, let's understand what is the meaning of inherited traits over here, and what do we mean by similarities and differences. Okay, so we know that children always, they show the basic features of a human body. As I have told, two eyes, two hands, two legs, the same body structure will be there. So this is showing a kind of similarity as that of parent. Now here, the children, how they look, they do not exactly look like that of parents. Even though they are basic, they are having the basic body structure of a human being, they will not be exactly very similar, very identical to that of the parents, right? There are small differences with respect to height, the skin color, the facial features, voice, and various characteristics might be that the blood group might be different. Okay, there are various lots of things which we can infer over here. And the human population, we could find a lot of diversity in the human population, a lot of variation. We can say no to individuals. Even the twins are not exactly alike. Their fingerprints differ, the iris, the internal iris structure, there is a different. The pattern on the tongues also differ. There is a lot of differences, okay? So the similarities and differences, why? It is because of inheritance of traits and the creation of the new variations as well. Okay, so the same thing we could find with respect to the attached and the free earlobe. Try to see, try to observe the people around you. Some might be having an attached earlobe, some might be having a free earlobe like this. That is also a trait which will be inherited. In some members it will be getting expressed, in some members it don't. So students, before we move forward, let's take a 2 minutes break and we shall continue the topic of discussion again. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can feel free to put it in the chat box. Okay. So students, I hope the break time is sufficient. Huh? Shall we continue with the topic of discussion? Yes. So meanwhile, before we move on, let me check if any questions. Okay, so there is a question stating sexual reproduction is producing more variation when compared with that of the asexual reproduction. So how it is happening? Of course, this is 100% correct. Why? Because sexual reproduction, how it is producing more variation, we knew there is a combination of gametes, the male gamete and the female gamete, nothing but the male sex cell and the female sex cell. So there is a fusion of two gametes from two different parents, because of which there is a creation of recombination. Okay, and we can say both the things, both the male and the female gamete contributing their genetic material, it is trying to create a new combination and the recombination, because of which there are chances for more variation. So I hope your doubt got cleared. So yeah, um any more questions? Okay, no questions. Okay, so as I have told you, because there is a combination of two things from two diversified parents, we can say the combinations are producing a new offspring. Okay, now moving on. let's try to understand the rules for inheritance of traits, and particularly let's try to understand regarding the Mendel's contributions. So who is Mendel? Let me tell you, Mendel is nothing but, he is the father of genetics. He conducted a lot of experiments on the pea plant. So far we have been understanding the inheritance of traits and the variations how they are appearing. With respect to the human beings, the inheritance of traits is occurring because both the parents, the male parent and the female parent, they are the contributors of the genetic material to the child. So this is somewhat related to the question that was just now asked. The sexual reproduction producing more variation when compared with that of the asexual reproduction. Why? Because the parents are contributing to the genetic material, and we can say there is a combination over here. So here the male parent, the female parent, both of them pass the equal amounts of DNA to the offspring, and there is a chances of more variation. So the inheritance of traits is because of the parents contributing the genetic material. Okay, and every trait, each and every trait which is being expressed within the child is under the influence of whom? Of course, both the parents. For each trait, there is a receiving of two versions from the parents, one from the mother and one from the father, one from the male parent or one from the female parent, we can say. Now, we could find which version of the trait will actually appear in the child. We are saying we are getting two traits, one from the mother, one from the father. But which version? Who should answer the question? So, which version of the trait will actually appear in the child? This question was answered by Gregor Johann Mendel, who is the father of genetics. He conducted a lot of activities on the pea plants. So he understood how the generations, how the inheritance and how the traits are getting expressed, and he have understood regarding the logic behind the question which version of the trait is actually appearing in the offspring. So what were Mendel's contributions? The rules for inheritance of the traits. What are it? What did Mendel do? Mendel carried out extensive experiments on the pea plants. So more than 100 years ago this was done. Okay, so we can say that he have contributed the work, and his work have been put forward by other scientists, and they also carried out extensive research on the concept of genetics, and till now on the concept of genetics many number of research activities are getting carried out. So what he have done, he have observed how traits were being passed from one generation to the next generation. This led to the discovery of basic rule of inheritance. So what was our question of discussion? How we are going to tell which one is getting expressed within the child. So what it is being dependent upon. Let's try to understand by Mendel's experiments on the pea plants. So what did he do? He have taken the pea plants and he have experimented, and by his experiments now we came to know how the traits are being passed from the parents to the offspring, and why some traits are appearing but some traits are not appearing, and we can also see some traits will be skipping the generations. How these traits are skipping the generations? See, sometimes, in the ancestor, if you could see a particular trait, for the next 2-3 generations, that trait does not get expressed. Again, for the fourth generation, that traits get expressed. But how there is a skipping of this trait in the generation? Now, this question is being answered by Mendel's work. The rules will be forming the foundation of the genetics. That's the reason he did an extensive work on this concept of genetics, right? So that's the reason he was being called as a father of genetics. So the rules are explaining why children are resembling the parents, but even though they resemble the parents in the basic body structure, they are not exactly the same. So, the Mendel's experiments. Where did he carry out the experiments? He have taken the pea plant. He have studied the inheritance using the garden pea plants. Okay, garden pea plants we have chosen because they are showing some clear contrasting characters, like how what will be the contrasting and clear characteristics being given by the pea plants, round or wrinkle seeds. Okay, so they might have round or they might have wrinkle seeds, they might have tall plants or the short plants, and they are having violet flowers or white flowers. And not only this criteria, there are 7 contrasting characters which are taken by Mendel for carrying out his experimentation. So let me tell you what are the 7 contrasting characteristics taken by Mendel. Okay, so what are they? The flower color, the plant height, the seed color, seed shape, pot shape and pot position. These were the characteristics, 7 contrasting characteristics taken by Mendel. Okay, so here we have the dominant trait and recessive trait. I'll tell you what is this dominant trait and recessive trait within a while. So as of now, just remember the flower color purple is dominant, white is recessive, plant height tall is dominant, short is recessive, seed color yellow is dominant and green is recessive, seed shape round, round is dominant and wrinkled is recessive. So pod color green color is dominant, yellow color is recessive. Pod shape, it is inflated, full, that is dominant. If it is constricted like that, it is recessive. And finally, the flower position, if it is in axial position, that is a dominant trait, and if it is in a terminal position, that is a recessive trait. Okay, so Mendel have considered all these 7 contrasting characteristics in the pea plants, and he have given certain laws. We have certain laws like laws of segregation, law of independent assortment. That all laws we will not discuss. We shall understand about the main characteristics over here of the Mendel's contribution. So before understanding about Mendel's experimentation and what we have to see, we have to see the traits how they are getting passed from one generation to another generation, and some traits will be getting expressed, some traits are not getting expressed. This is our main intention, right? Before moving to the Mendel's contribution, let's try to understand some important terms. Okay, so I'll tell you what these important terms are. You can try to make a note of it. We have the chromosome, gene, dominant gene, recessive gene, genotype, phenotype, F1 generation, F2 generation. Okay, so I will tell you what this term represent. Then later on we shall go with Mendel's experiment, and then we shall be understanding about what these terms are exactly mean. Let's start with chromosome. So what is a chromosome? Most of the time we might have heard this concept chromosome. So what is a chromosome? A thread-like structure, like that we can look it. Where it is being formed? It is being found in the nucleus. So what does it do? This is the main thing which carries the genetic information. Genetic information is the one which decides the features. Then what else we have? We have gene. Previously, we have seen a chromosome. Na? In the chromosome, a small section of chromosome is being called as a gene. What it is doing? It is controlling specific character or specific trait of a particular organism. With respect to human beings, it can be eye color, it can be height, or it can be anything. It can be even in plants also. Flower color, flower, whether it is being present in the axial position or terminal position, whether it is having different colors, all these who is deciding? It is being decided by the gene, which is a small section of chromosome. Moving on, dominant gene. Okay, so what is the meaning of dominant gene? Gene is a small section of chromosome. Na? Dominant gene is the gene which shows its effect even when only one copy is being present. So when we are discussing about the pea plant, we shall take these terms: capital T, small t. So capital T always corresponds for tall height, and small t always corresponds for short height. Okay. So we can see over here, in case of dominant gene, in a pea plant, the gene for tall height is a dominant gene, and if the pea plant is expressing this character, okay, it should be always represented in double, and if it is expressing this character, we can say it is a plant with TT being tall. Okay, now just give me one moment, students. I shall drink some water. Yeah, thank you. So we have been understanding about the dominant gene, right? So then what about the recessive? The one that will be showing the effect when both the copies are present. Means for a dominant gene to show its effect, it can be like this. Both the capital T, or it should be one capital T, one small t, it is fine. Small t again represents for recessive trait. So recessive gene, if it is showing its effect, it means it should have both the copies like this, small t, small t. Then only it will be corresponding for short height. For example, in case of pea plants, the gene for the short height will be small t, and we can say t, small t, the one is recessive, and the plant will be exhibiting a character of shortness only if it is showing this one. If in case, if the plant is showing like this, it means it is a tall plant only. If it have to show the short character, it should definitely show this character. Okay. Now, moving forward to the genotype. Genotype is nothing but the genetic makeup of an organism, the gene an organism is carrying. Yeah, just now I told na, the tall plants and the short plant. T corresponds for the dominant trait, small t corresponds for the recessive trait. So capital T means the plant will be a tall plant. Capital T, small t means here capital T is there, means dominant trait is there, means the plant will be tall plant only. And recessive means what? It is showing its effect only both when both the copies are being present. So small t corresponds for short plant. So these letter combinations are nothing but the genotypes, the genetic makeup of an organism, the genes the organism is carrying is the genotype. Now moving on. Phenotype. Then what is the meaning of phenotype? Phenotype is nothing but the external appearance of a trait. For suppose, I shall give you one combination. Okay. Now tell me what is the combination of it. Capital T. Okay. Capital T, small t, and small t, small t. Now, capital T means tall plant. Capital T, small t is which plant? Tall plant only. Small t, this one only corresponds for short. Okay. So let's say this is tall, this is tall, this is short. When I look at the plants, will I be able to tell if it is a tall plant? Will I be able to tell that it is having a combination of small t, capital T or capital T, small t? No, right? Both of them, how they look for me? They look tall only. So when I see physically, they are looking the same. But when I see genetically, they are not the same. So what is a phenotype? It is the visible or physical appearance of a trait. It can be tall plant, it can be short plant, it can be having round seeds or wrinkle seeds or yellow seeds, green seeds, it can be anything. But the phenotype, it is only the physical appearance of a trait. Got it, everyone? Now we have some more important terms like the F1 generation and the F2 generation. F1 generation means first filial generation. So first generation of offspring being produced from the two parents, it is the F1 generation. Let's take the example of a tall pea plant getting crossed with a short pea plant. The offspring getting produced is the F1 generation, means first generation of the offspring. Now we have one more generation. What is that? F2 generation, the second filial generation. So what is the meaning of the second filial generation? It is the one being formed when there is a crossing of two F1 individuals. Okay, so when two F1 tall plants are being crossed, the offspring belongs to the F2 generation. So in the F2 generation, we can see a combination of the tall plants as well as the short plants. Okay, so these are the important terms. Understanding everyone? Does the lesson feel complicated? No, na? Okay, so let me check if any questions from any one of you. Okay, so there is a question. What will be the chances that offspring may get affected if both parents are carriers of the disorder? Definitely, we can say if both parents are the carriers of a particular disease or disorder, there are chances if the defective genes are getting passed to the child, and if the defective genes are getting expressed in the child, there are chances for the expression of that particular disease in the child as well. Okay, so the parents, if they are passing the defective genes are getting expressed within the child, and that leads to the occurrence of disease. Okay. Yes. Okay. We got a break of 5 minutes. Let's take a small break of 5 minutes and we shall be back again. Okay, so students, we are back from the break. Let's get started with the discussion. So far we have been understanding about the Mendel's contribution and we have seen what are the important terms which are related to the experimentation procedures. Okay, so now let's move on and let's understand regarding the Mendel's contribution and how the proposal of rules of inheritance of traits have been put forward. Let's take the example of the cross between tall and the short plants. So what Mendel have done was he have taken the tall pea plant and he have taken a short pea plant and there was a cross between the tall pea plant and the short pea plant and he observed the offspring. So, what do you think? What might be the offspring? How the offspring might be produced? Do you think the offspring will be tall, or the offspring will be short? Think of it. Let me tell you. Okay, so there is a cross between tall plant and the short plant. Let's represent the tallness and the shortness by these genes. So we have the capital T and the small t. We knew during the formation of the gametes, the chromosomal number gets reduced to half. Yes, that we have seen where in the concept of meiosis. Okay, so now if we could take the example of the short plants and the tall plants and their crossing, the capital T, the small t, let's take. Okay, both are in homozygous condition. Homozygous means both are having the similar things. TT, capital T and small t. Now, during the formation of the gametes, let's take T, capital T, small t, okay, and there is a crossing between the tall plant and the short plant. So now what happens? What will be the offspring? Do you think the tallness gets expressed or the shortness gets expressed? When there is a combination of both, of course, we can say the tallness or the shortness. Okay, let me tell you. When there is a cross between the short and the tall plants, generally what we will think, the tallness and the shortness, both of them should combine and they should get mixed up. We will be thinking that they should be of medium height, but no, the offspring will either be tall or either be short. When there is a cross between the tall and the short plants, the first generation of the offspring, what we are going to call it as the first filial generation, that plants will all be tall and no medium height plants are going to produce and the traits are not getting mixed up, only the tall plants are getting expressed. Okay, so we can say the capital T, it is corresponding for short tallness. The small t, it is corresponding for shortness, right? When there is a cross between them, so half the gametes will be like this. Production of offspring, how it will be? We can say all the tall offsprings are getting produced. Okay, we can see external visible things, we can see it as the same, but no medium height plants are going to get produced. So the tall plant, the short plant, all offsprings will be tall. The tallness traits are going to get expressed, but the short trait are getting hidden. Now I have a question for you. Let me erase all the ink on this slide. Okay. So if it is capital T, we knew it is tall. Now tell me, if it is capital T small t, is it tall? Yes, it is tall. By looking at the plants, at the tall plants, particularly the offspring, can we tell whether it is of capital T tallness or capital T small t tallness? No. By looking at the external appearance, we cannot tell. We need to go for the analyzing of genetic makeup of the individual, right? So, the tallness trait is getting expressed over here or here means the physical appearance, nothing but the phenotype. Okay, when we are going for the individual category with respect to the genetic makeup, that is being called as a genotype. So let me reiterate the points. The cross between the tall and the short plants, all the plants are tall. Now what we are doing, what Mendel have did, he had the F2 generation to test whether the short trait was completely lost or to test whether the short trait is only hidden. What did Mendel do? Mendel allowed the F1 tall plants to undergo self-pollination. So now the result of the F2 generation is majority of the plants, of course, they are tall. They are expressing either this character or this character. But he could also observe 1/4 of the plants were short. Okay. Now, this is F1 tall plant. It is not cross-pollinated. It is self-pollinated. Means what is happening over here? We could find the hidden ones, the hidden things which were there. They got expressed. What we have seen when both the copies are getting expressed over recessive character, there is a expression of the character. Now the plant will be short since both are recessive genes. Whereas here this is homozygous. The dominant trait over here will be the tallness. This is also heterozygous because it is capital D small t, but the dominant trait will be of capital T, the tallness only. Okay. So what did this prove? The cross between the tall plant and the short plant, it have proved the tallness or shortness were present in where? In the F1 plants, the characteristics of the tallness and the shortness are also present, but shortness did not get expressed. Only tallness was visible in F1 generation, but not shortness. Can we say that small t is not present? Of course, but it can be present in this form. Since this is representing the dominant character, the plant will be a tall plant. Okay, when the F1 plants are undergoing a self-pollination, again the shortness reappeared. Now during the formation of gametes from this, they are getting self-pollinated, right? So we can say these gametes are being formed and there might be the crossing over of small t. We can have many number of combinations by this. So small t getting expressed over here, we can say like that. Okay, now what we are concluding from the experiment, Mendel proposed that every trait is being controlled by two factors and now we are going to call it as a gene. One is coming from the male parent, one comes from whom? From the female parent. If it is with respect to the living organism, we are considering them to be the male parent, the female parent. So this is a rule of inheritance of the trait. Only the dominant trait is getting expressed. The recessive trait also gets expressed, but when both the copies of genes are belonging to the recessive traits, then only the recessive trait is going to get expressed. Okay, so these two factors, they might be the same. They can be both tall or both short, or they can be different. They can be one tall, one short, like this combination. They can be tall, they can be short, or they can be like this. Okay, so even though both the factors are present in the combination like this. Okay, let's take, we are aware of this is tallness, we are aware of this is shortness. But what about this? Both the factors are present, but only one may be expressed. And what is the one? The one which is being dominant over here is getting expressed. And that's the reason we are going to call it as a dominant gene. Okay, so what is the conclusion of the experiment? From the Mendel experiments in the F1 generation, we got all the tall plants. Okay, when the F1 generation plants are cross-pollinated, what we got? We got the short plants. Thereby, what we can conclude? We can conclude the characteristics of shortness, the genes required for them are present within the plant, but they are not getting expressed because there is a domination of the tall character. If there is no domination, if both are belonging to the short character, then they will be getting expressed. Okay, so from this what we can conclude? Capital T is called a dominant trait, small t is a recessive trait, the shortness. So dominant trait, it is showing its effect only, this is very very important, remember, it will be showing its effect. See, capital T small t combination, what will be the plant? Tallness. So whose effect is there over here? The dominant trait. What is the dominant gene? The capital T. So a dominant trait is showing its effect even only one copy is present. But what about the recessive trait? A recessive trait is showing its effect when both the copies are same. Like this combination, then only the shortness getting expressed. If it is this combination, then it is dominated by the dominated one only, not the short one, not the recessive gene. Okay. So the conclusion from the experiment, let me tell you once again. Here Mendel have given us with a characteristic understanding of the tall plants and the short plants, what happens when they are getting crossed, right? So the first generation is called as a monohybrid cross, since we are taking only one parameter into consideration. If we are taking both parameters, for suppose if we are taking tallness is one parameter, or if we take color of the seed is one parameter. But if we take tallness as well as the color of the seed, both of it is going to consider as a dihybrid cross. So we can say the monohybrid cross, first we are getting initiated with the height of the plant. What parental generation has? Parental generation has the tallness and the dwarf, the short character. So during the formation of gametes, of course, we can see the gametes, the reduction of the number to half. So this will be the gamete from tall plant capital T, from short plant small t. They are combining and they are giving this plants which are having the characteristics of capital T small t, and we are calling it as a F1 generation, the first filial generation. So now the first filial generation are subjected to the self-pollination, not cross-pollination. Again, if we go for cross-pollination, no, many of the combinations are going to occur. We get confused about our experiment itself. Okay, so now what we are doing? We are self-pollinating them. Okay, so now what will be the gametes from this combination? Capital T, small t, capital T and small t. Okay, here capital T should come. Now what we are doing, we are taking this gamete and we are crossing them. Okay, and we can see multiple combinations over here. F2 generation will be having the multiple combinations over here. So what we can say, the F2 generation is also showing a short character. Okay, so we can conclude the short character is present, but it is getting expressed only when there is a expression of two things, the small t and the small t. The same we can see with the help of the other things as well. So this is a monohybrid cross of the pea plant as we were discussing. Okay, we can see with the combination of yellow color, the yellow seeds we can take. We can have that combination of the same. We can take the uh, round or wrinkled seeds. Okay, yellow color or green color, round or wrinkled seeds. We can take the combination and we can just put them together. We are going to get the parent generation, the gametes, and the first filial generation. We can express it. We can take the first filial generation, go for the self-pollination of them. We are going to analyze the monohybrid cross by this. Okay, so I have here in the first generation all the plants are the tall plants, but when it comes to the second generation, then we shall be understanding the shortness character is also getting expressed. So now let's understand about the inheritance of two traits together, nothing but the dihybrid cross. So what happens with respect to the dihybrid cross? Now we are taking two characteristics, a tall plant with round seeds and followed by a short plant with wrinkled seeds. Okay, so first filial generation, how it will be there? All the offsprings will be tall and all the offsprings will also have the round seeds. Now, what is this showing? This shows in the dihybrid cross, the tallness is the dominant character over whom? Over the shortness, and the round seeds are the dominant one over whom? Over the wrinkled seeds. And if we are crossing them together in the dihybrid cross, what we are doing? The tall plant with round seed is taking, the short plant with wrinkled seed is being taken. Now the first filial generation we are going to get, the tallness being dominant over the shortness and round seeds being dominant over the wrinkled seeds in the first filial generation. When the first filial generation are undergoing a self pollination, what we can get? We can get the second generation. So the F1 plants being allowed to self pollinate, the F2 generation will be having four different combinations. What are those four different combinations? The tall plants with round seeds, one combination. Short plants with wrinkled seeds, this should be the second combination. New combination we have nothing but the tall plants with wrinkled seeds and short plants with round seeds. Now you understood how the sexual reproduction is giving rise to variation within the offspring. According to our criteria, dominant one should be tallness, dominant one should be round seeds. But here, the tall plants with what? With wrinkled seeds, with a new combination. And short plants with what? Short plants should be, we think it should be with wrinkled seeds only. It is the criteria that we generally follow. But because of the variations, because of the crossing over, we can see the short plants with round seeds, which is a new combination. So from this, what we can conclude? When the second generation, F2 generation in the dihybrid cross, when the F2 plants are undergoing self-pollination, one combination is tall with round seeds, one combination is short plant with wrinkled seeds, other combination will be tall with wrinkled seeds and short with round ones, will be the new combination of the plants getting produced. Got it, everyone? Yes, are you understanding? So this will be the rule of the inheritance. Okay, so let me check if any questions. Okay, so a question says why recessive traits are not expressed in F1 generation of monohybrid cross? Simple, because they are being masked by the dominant trait. Since they are being masked by the dominant trait, we can see that there is a no expression of the recessive trait in the F1 generation. Because the dominant one, just now we have seen the dominant one is so dominating that it is not allowing the expression of the recessive thing. So that's the reason. So students, let's take a small break of 2 minutes and let's be back again with the discussion of the concept. So students, I hope that break is enough now. Let's move forward. Let's understand regarding furthermore concept of role of DNA and genes. So how the traits are getting expressed. Now comes the question, how these traits are getting expressed exactly. Now here we have the role of DNA and genes where the mechanism of heredity is working through this DNA and genes. So what does the DNA do? It carries the information for what? For making of certain proteins inside the cell. Okay, imagine if the DNA is altered, the protein generation, it is also being altered. Okay, think, think of it. If there is a variation, there is an alteration within the protein sequence. Now, the traits are getting expressed and there is a role of DNA and genes over this expression. So what is a gene? As of course, as we knew, it is a small part of the DNA, particularly the ones which contains instructions for making the specific proteins, and the proteins are the one that are responsible for controlling the traits. Okay, but when there is an alteration, of course the traits also get altered, right? Let's take an example of height of the plant in order to understand about this statement. Plants, we know they produce various growth hormones that we have seen in control and coordination chapter. So the hormones are necessary for controlling various activities of the plant. Let's take a hormone. One hormone is controlling the tallness or the shortness of the plant. It is controlling how tall the plant is growing. So the amount of hormone, how much it is produced, it is being dependent upon whom, how well an enzyme is working. Okay, so if the enzyme is working good, the hormone is getting produced. So if there is a gene that is responsible for making this enzyme, if that gene is altered, the enzyme is altered, the hormone production is altered, and if the hormone production is altered, the tallness, it is also altered. Are you able to understand? So what we can conclude, if the enzyme is working efficiently, more hormone is being produced. Wow, well and good. If more hormone, good growth, the plant is growing tall. But if the DNA, if the gene, the segment is getting altered for the enzyme, the one which encodes the enzyme, if it is getting altered, the enzyme, it cannot work properly, and the enzyme, when it is not functioning properly, since it is having hormone production as its function, the hormone cannot be produced. There is a production of less hormone and plant is remaining short. So in this way, there is a role of DNA and the genes, and the traits are getting expressed with respect to these mechanisms. So genes, what they tend to do, the genes are the controller of the traits. So how they tend to control the traits? By controlling proteins, and in turn the proteins affect the bodily characteristics or the traits. Okay. Now, the contribution of the parents from the Mendel's experiments, what we have seen, both the parents are contributing equally for what? To the DNA. So, the DNA of offspring is being by the contribution of the male parent and the female parent. So, during the sexual reproduction, there is a fusion of gametes, the fertilization is happening. There is a combination of DNA from both the parents. You know, multiple recombination steps occur. Again, that will be into the details of the concept. Let's be, as of now, let's understand the peripheral concept as per the requirement. Okay, so each parent is going to give one copy of a gene. That will be the contribution of this parents. So now the offspring will be having two copies, one from the male parent, one from the female parent. So this will be showing us why the traits may be dominant or the recessive. The traits are either dominant or the recessive. From where they are getting? From the parent. Okay, imagine, again I'll tell you. Let's take the pea plant as an example. Capital T, small t. When this is the combination. Tallness or shortness? Tell me quickly. Tallness. Okay. So, if it is the scenario, now tell me what it is. Shortness. So, based upon the two copies of every gene which is contributed for the offspring by their parents, that decides how the traits are getting expressed within the offspring. So, genes in germ cells, of course, we knew the body cells have two copies of each gene, but germ cells, nothing but the gametes, the male or the female sex cells, they need to have only one copy. That's why in meiotic divisions, there is a reduction of chromosomal number to half. There is, if it is a diploid character, haploid will be formed like that. Okay, so why this is essential? Because if germ cells are having two copies, okay, let's imagine, I shall give you an example. If it is a diploid character of mother, diploid character of father. During the formation of gametes, let's take haploid character. Okay, so the gametes combine, these gametes, this is for example, again the diploid character, the 2n condition is being restored. If it is not occurring, if it is the same diploid character, 2n condition, 2n condition. If it is there within the offspring, it is 4n condition. Then what happens? There is a adverse effect over here. There is a disturbance in the genetic makeup of an individual itself. Do you think that organism is going to survive? No. So if germ cell is having two copies, the offspring will be having the double the DNA, and because of which there is a disturbance of the inheritance patterns. Okay, so that's the reason germ cells are being formed in such a way that only one set of genes is being carried, and when two germ cells are getting fused together during the process of fusion or fertilization, we can have the restoration of normal gene number. So this is how the traits are getting expressed. Now, let's move into the concept of chromosomes and independent inheritance. Okay, like genes, we are telling genes now. As long as one long DNA thread, the genes are not present. Instead, what we can see, the DNA being packed into separate units called as chromosome. So each cell, it is having a pair of chromosome. One we are getting from the father, one we are getting from the mother. So during the germ cell formation, what happens? One chromosome from each pair, reduction in the chromosomal number, reduced to half. If it is diploid condition, haploid set will be produced. So the chromosome might be maternal or the paternal. So one chromosome from each pair is getting passed, and now the genes for different traits being on separate chromosome, they will be able to have an independent inheritance. Okay, remember the point again. The genes for different traits are being present on the separate chromosomes, so they can be inherited independently. And this is the one that explains us the Mendel's result, where the new combinations in the dihybrid cross, we have seen tall plants with wrinkle seeds. What we think? Tall plants should have round seeds because tallness and round seeds are the dominant character. But no, we have got a new combination. What is that new combination? Tall plant with a green seed. Okay, so like that, we can say the Mendel's result being the new combination of traits being appearing in the F2 generation is because the genes for different traits being present on the separate chromosomes are being inherited independently. Okay. Now, independent inheritance of two traits. What did Gregor Johann Mendel show? He have shown the seed shape, the round or wrinkle, or the seed color. It might be yellow or the green. They are being independently inherited. That is the reason we could find the dihybrid cross is where the tall plants with the wrinkle seeds and the short plants with round seeds are getting expressed. Actually, based upon the law of dominance, we generally think the dominant character should get expressed. As per this combination, we should only have the tall plants with round seeds, the short plants with wrinkled seeds. But here we are having more characteristics like tall plants with wrinkled seeds and short plants with round seeds. Why? Because there is a independent inheritance of two traits over here, as we have seen. Now, coming to the sex determination. Okay, so before we move on to the sex determination concept, let me check if any questions, and if any, I shall try to explain. Okay, so acquired traits are not being inherited by next generation, even though they are helping an individual to have survival. Why? Okay, so acquired traits, they are not being inherited because they are not showing any alteration within the DNA of the organism now. What are acquired traits? Like the ones which an individual developed during the lifetime. It might be swimming, it might be dancing, it might be singing, anything it might be. Okay, the individual is developing during the lifetime. There is no alteration within the DNA of the person. If the DNA of the person is getting altered, then the acquired traits may pass. But since the DNA is not getting altered, there is no question of passing of the traits to the offspring. Okay, yes. So now let's understand about the sex determination. In the sexual reproduction, we have seen male and females. They must be definitely different from each other, because in the previous classes we have seen how the male reproductive system, how the female reproductive system is. So now coming to the question, how the sex of a newborn child is being decided. How we can see whether a child is male or whether a child is female. So now if we could see the sex determination with respect to different organisms. Okay, different organisms have following different criteria. In some reptiles, the temperature is a main criteria. Whether the baby is male or female, the temperature is deciding. So fertilized eggs will be there. They are placed in certain temperature. The temperature is now the decision maker of whether the baby will be male or female. In case of snails, if we could take, an individual is having the capacity to change its gender into male or female category during a lifetime. It is not getting fixed genetically with respect to the lower organisms like the snails. But in humans, it is not like that. So in human beings, there is a specific gene characteristics which are being inherited from the parents, and this will be determining the sex of a child, and this is a genetic process in humans. So then how this will be there? We knew the role of chromosomes. As of now, in humans, a total of 23 pair means 46 chromosomes are being present. Out of them, 44 are autosomes, means 22 pair are autosomes. One pair is called as a sex chromosome. So half that combination will be there. If it is a female, it will be 44 plus XX. If it is a male, it is a 44 plus XY. So this will be the combination of the chromosomes. In humans, the 23 pair of chromosomes are being present. So these sex chromosomes, they are being different in males and females. As I have told you, females are having XX, means two identical set of chromosomes, and males what they are having XY, one X and one Y. Y being the shorter one. Now how the sex of the child is being determined. Okay, so let's take the male parent and the female parent. Father's chromosome will be X and Y. During the formation of gametes, we knew what will be the gamete formed from over here, X and Y. The mother's chromosome, 2X. Okay, so when X of male and X of female combines, the child will be a female child, XX. But when Y of male and X of female combines, the child will be XY, means a male child. Let me tell this once again for you. This is half the parent chromosomal combinations are there. 44 plus XY, 44 plus XX, female and male. Okay. Now, the sperm production. During the sperm production, we could see one with X character, one with Y character, because the chromosomal number is being reduced, right? And we could see during the formation of gamete, the diploid set becomes haploid. Now we could see 22 plus X, 22 plus Y condition. We can, for our reference, we can take it as X and Y. Okay. Now, if you could take the female, from female, simple category, X and X. So X and X. So the X from the male and the X from the female, if it is combining, that will be a baby girl. The baby girl, if both the X's are combining. If the Y from the male and X from the female egg is combining, the ones, the progeny, the offspring will be a baby boy. So this is how the sex of a child is getting determined. So how the sex of child is getting determined? The mother is always the contributor of the X chromosome. The father either gives X or Y chromosome. So if the child is getting X from father and X from mother, combination is the girl, XX. Or if the child is getting Y from father and X from mother, the combination is XY. Okay, which means it is a boy. So the sex determination is purely, completely being dependent upon the father, the male parent, but not the female parent. So far we have been discussing a lot number of concepts now. Now, finally, we are at the end of today's discussion. Before concluding, let me check if any further questions finally. Okay, so here question says, why heredity being considered a link between reproduction and evolution? Because simple, why it is being considered as a link? Because the variations are getting passed, right? So that's the reason it is considered, the heredity is considered as a link between the reproduction as well as the evolution, because we could find the variations are being passed from parents to the offspring, and they will be bringing out the new changes, the diversified changes, which helps the survival of the living organism. Okay. So far students, we have been discussing a lot number of concepts. We have understood about the variation and inheritance, how the differences are obtained, and we understood about the accumulation of variation during the reproduction conditions. We understood regarding heredity. We understood the rules of inheritance of traits. By Mendel's experiment, we have seen the cross between the tall plants and short plants, and we have seen the first filial generation, the second filial generation, followed by the dihybrid cross. So after the monohybrid cross, we understood regarding the dihybrid cross. So half the inheritance of true traits is getting together, and half the new combinations are getting produced. So half the traits are getting expressed with the help of the genes, with the help of DNA segments, followed by the sex determination with respect to the human beings. So this was the concept of today's discussion. I hope the concept is clear for you. So I request every one of you to please go through the notes after the completion of the concept, so that you will be an understanding, clear understanding of the concept. If you wanted to get to know more details of the concept, definitely you can feel free to reach out to us. Okay. So thank you so much students. It's really wonderful. Keep learning the concepts. Thank you so much and have a great evening everyone. Thank you and bye everyone.